The time is here in the life cycle of a GPU architecture where it fades into the sunset in favor of something newer, faster, and more power efficient. While Pascal has served us well for well over 2 full years now, NVIDIA does have something new coming, and hopefully soon. Rumors and speculation are rampant about pricing, availability, and performance, so I figured I'd take a look back at some historical data and try to answer at least 2 of those 3 questions. Ready to dive into custom water cooling but unclear about what parts you might need? Check out Thermaltake's new M360 Plus RGB kit. Featuring a D5 pump res combo, 16mm hard tube, Pacific C Pro fittings, and the best RGB implementation on the market, the M360 Plus fits all mainstream Intel and AMD sockets and is fully expandable as your system evolves. Check out the link in the video description to learn more. Traditionally, NVIDIA has launched a new GPU architecture to mainstream consumers by introducing the 80 version of that card. Kepler was launched with the GTX 780 in May of 2013, Maxwell was launched with the GTX 980 in September of 2014, and Pascal came upon us in May of 2016 with the GTX 1080. It stands to reason that the first graphics cards we see implementing Turing processors will be the GTX 1180. The chip designation will likely be the GT104, but beyond that, there's not much we can say with really any level of certainty. But it's always fun to speculate, so let's take a look at pricing data. The 780 launched at $649, the 980 at $549, and the 1080 at $599. Even though that $100 price cut between the 780 and the 980 is tempting to think about regarding what might happen now, it's actually more likely that we see NVIDIA increase prices rather than decrease them. I don't think we're about to see a $1,000 GTX 1180, but either a return to $649 or even a bump up to $699 seems reasonable given the increased cost of memory and the fact that it's rumored to use the brand new GDDR6 modules. This unfortunately means that AIB partner cards with likely superior coolers, higher clocks, and better power delivery will be up somewhere in the $749 range, which is what many GTX 1080 Ti's go for now. So will the performance gains be worth it? I took many hours of my life and reran 10 different benchmarks on these 3 cards I have here in front of me. This is the EVGA GTX 780 Superclocked. It has a very slight frequency advantage over the reference card, but in the grand scheme of things, and for the purposes of our comparison today, the modest performance increases won't really be relevant. It'll be putting down numbers next to the GTX 980 reference and the GTX 1080 Founders Edition. I didn't adjust a single setting on any of these cards, so they were running all as if they came straight from the factory. The test bench used an i7-8700K, again, unchanged from stock, along with 16 gigs of 3000 speed Corsair Vengeance LPX in a Gigabyte Z370 Aorus Gaming 7 motherboard. Here's how the cards stack up in 10 different benchmarks. The reason I ran all of these tests is to see if we could average out the generational improvements and extrapolate the data moving forward. Here's a chart that shows improvement generation over generation as a function of percent. To help you read it, in each title tested, this is the percent improvement from the 780 to the 980, and this is the percent improvement from the 980 to the 1080. Factoring in the results of all of our benchmarks, the average improvement from the 780 to the 980 was 42.4%, and the improvement from the 980 to the 1080 was 55.9%. I think it's fair to say that we could expect similar results when we step up to the 1180, although clearly the exact performance boost is not known and can vary greatly from title to title. As a fun exercise, I took this data and the average improvement numbers and applied them to the GTX 1080's results. I moved each a little towards the median, and on the low end I applied a 45% boost, while on the high end I applied a 52% improvement. Here are the projected 1080p benchmark results for the GTX 1180 using the data that I have to work with. Please note two things. Number one, some of these titles have hard caps, like Doom at 200 frames per second, so these are purely theoretical numbers. And two, these results are all 1080p. The reason I'm using 1080p is that these projections are based on data going back to the 780, and the 780 has trouble running these tests at anything other than 1080p. Realistically, when the 1180 releases, it would likely be wasteful to use it for 1080p gaming, and it should be implemented for high refresh rate 1440p gaming or even use at 4K. It'll be interesting to see once the 1180 launches how close our projections are to the actual performance of the card. Of course, we all wish for astronomical improvements in performance between generations. But honestly, I'm not sure NVIDIA has the motivation to really do that at this time. The 1180 has been speculated on since last year, and NVIDIA seems in no rush to push it out to market as they still enjoy a commanding lead in GPU sales over AMD, with no products on the horizon that could potentially threaten their dominance. It's almost like if they just went for broke here and started selling a product with 100% performance improvement over the Pascal generation, it'll be just a complete waste. So I hope you guys enjoyed this fun video and didn't take this data too seriously. After all, as close as we potentially are to a new launch, we know very little about the GTX 1180 that isn't pure rumor. I think using historical information, we can get a general sense about what might happen, but for now, we're all just kind of playing the wait and see game. Thanks for watching, get subscribed if you're not already, check out the new merch store link down below, and as always guys, see you next time.